into it. So we're talking about picking a college, which
Yeah,
is something that I don't know, and maybe this is something we can kind of talk about, to kind of lead into it. But whenever I was picking a school, like looking back, I wish if I could go back and do it again, I don't know if I would do it the same way. Not necessarily that
yeah,
I wouldn't pick the school that I went to because I'm very appreciative of Louisiana Tech, and I don't think I'd be the engineer that I am today if I didn't go there.
yeah,
But just like I think there were a lot of unexplored options that, could have led me down different directions or have given me a better, understanding of how to pick a school and what goes into picking a school.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think that's what we're going to talk about. But that's something that I was kind of looking back on it and talking to people, and I was like, that's something that I don't think any 17, 16, 17 year old, whenever they're applying for colleges, considers. Like they don't consider all the things, and
yeah,
they don't know everything about a college yet. Like they don't really understand what to look for, and maybe we
yeah,
can enlighten them.
yeah, yeah. That's a great point, Luke. I think I'll also preface this that I am very thankful for where I went to school, Trinity University. Their engineering program is fantastic. They did a wonderful job of preparing me for my career, and I would not be in the position that I am in today, which I believe is a great position with my career, if it weren't for the education and the connections and the people that I met and all the things I got from there. But like you, I think that there's definitely a lot. I mean, once you do think college is one of those things that you most people only get to look for a college once, right?
Right.
So we have this massive wealth of people, you and I
Yeah.
being two of those people, that have already done it and then won't have the opportunity to do it again. So
Yeah.
I agree. There's a lot of things that I would have maybe done differently or placed a little bit more emphasis on, or things that I just really would have enjoyed knowing whenever I was looking for a college. And I think that that's what you did a really good job in kind of scaffolding this conversation between the two of us and highlighting some of those things. So this is Engineering Success Podcast, how we got here, how we picked a college, and things to consider when selecting a college. So, Luke, same format, except I'm going to talk a little bit more this time. You
Perfect.
kind of came up with the structure here, so I'm going to kind of go back and forth and continue to interview you on it. But I'm definitely going to put little more input into it. So,
Okay.
you say that the first thing you want to consider is the degree. So, you want to select a university that is beneficial for the degree you're going for. So, what do you mean by beneficial for the degree you're going for?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, whenever they tend to pick schools, they don't necessarily continue consider like what they're going for.
Yeah,
So for instance, like I knew I wanted to go to mechanical engineering, but for some reason it never crossed my mind, to like potentially do a Google search of, most affordable, like best, value per cost or value to cost ratio of engineering schools in the country.
yeah,
Um, so it's just kind of like I just kind of picked tech, but some people they go to, you've heard stories of they want to pursue something in a STEM field and they're going to primarily like a liberal arts school or something that doesn't even have like an engineering program or have a really well developed or accredited, kind of STEM majors and STEM programs. And so it's like you're kind of setting yourself up for failure if you do that. Like if
yeah,
they're outputting a bunch of, business degrees or MBAs, which isn't a bad degree at all. Um, they're probably not going to have a lot of emphasis on their engineering programs and really give you a lot of good connections and all that other kind of stuff. So pick a school that best suits the degree that you want to get.
yeah. Yeah, and I'll say that as somebody that went to a liberal arts school, that we didn't have a school of engineering, but we did have an accredited engineering program. So my program was ABET accredited. I, you know, I will say that I got a lot out of the liberal arts education, and would I do it again? Yes. And do I preach the value of it? Yes. But I will say that, yeah, selecting a university that puts out a lot of people that are in that degree program, and that's like their prominent thing. You'll find that whenever you're looking going to alumni networking events and stuff like that, more a higher percentage of the people that you're going to those events with are going to be people that are in your industry. So one thing that I noticed is I went to every single alumni networking event in my hometown for my university, and I didn't meet a single engineer at any of them because I went to a phenomenal liberal arts university. So I met a bunch of
Right.
really great, successful people that weren't engineers. So I had to kind of network a little bit differently, and thankfully my university did a good job of helping me do that. But yeah, I might have had a couple more opportunities and I might have bumped shoulders with a lot more engineering alumni if I had gone to a school that was known for pumping out engineers.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, like, of course, we want to cater this. This is the Engineering Success Podcast, but I mean, if you want to look at different fields, um, like if you get into something that's super niche, even if it's a form of engineering, like if you want to go into oil and gas, like there are a lot, or pulp and paper, for instance. Like if you want to go work for graphic packaging or Georgia Pacific, I think are both two pretty big pulp and paper industries. There are some schools that have a specific pulp and paper engineering curriculum, and like
Yeah,
LSU has a petrochem uh, engineering course, right? And so like if you want to pursue oil and gas, you could do that or power generation. And so like the degree is much more than just kind of like the overarching thing. And
yeah,
even to go a little bit farther into other degrees, like if you want to be a writer, you probably want to go to a school that has a really well-known, journalism degree or whatever other sort of degree would put you into that kind of publishing or into that writing world. And so pick a degree, pick a school that's going to be beneficial to your degree first and foremost.
yeah, yeah. And you know, one of the other things that it might seem kind of obvious, pick a school that's known for your degree. So a lot of people they go to like US News or they go to other reports and stuff like that, but I don't know if those US News reports are as specific as maybe you may want them to be. So, for example, if somebody wanted to work as an electrical engineer for Texas Instruments,
Hmm.
if they went and talked to a bunch of people that worked at Texas Instruments, they might talk to them and say, hey, what are some schools that you recruit a lot from? So, if you're interested in working in a particular industry, maybe go on LinkedIn and find somebody that's a recruiter and say, "Hey, I'm in high school. I really want to pursue this degree. What universities are you hiring a lot of people out of?" And you might be surprised to know that Texas A&M Corpus Christi has a large hiring output that goes to Texas Instruments in Dallas. Who would have known? But that's just a thing. Or if you looked at somebody that worked in construction in the Gulf Coast as an engineer or EPC, like I do, you might find out that a lot of the graduates are Aggies. Or if you go to Lockheed Martin in DFW, you might find out that a lot of their graduates went to UT Arlington. So you can kind of talk to people that work for those industries. Say, hey, where do a lot of people that work at your company, where did they graduate from? And I think that that's something that you can kind of do is go one step further than the U.S. News report. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, absolutely. And I mean, I think it was something, I don't know if I had mentioned it here or maybe I had, kind of planned on talking about it later. But yeah, so like if you have big aspirations to go and work for, a company like Google, or if you want to go work for Tesla or SpaceX or something that's, somewhat prestigious or somewhat, I mean, it doesn't even have to be prestigious. Like if you want to work in a certain field, right? Like if you want to go do aeronautics or if you want to go work on like submarines or boats or whatever, like you want to find a school that industry will recruit really heavily out of because it's going to set you up for success later down the road, right? So like whenever those companies come to your career fair, if you're just filling in an application online and sending it into that company, like you're just going to be one of potentially thousands of just online applicants that like nothing special stands out. But if you get the chance to interact with them at a career fair, or definitely if you have alumni, like if you have alumni of that school at the school that you're attending and pursuing your bachelor's, that's going to automatically be a leg up, right? Because like they may not, for instance, like Louisiana Tech, we just started to kind of like break into the NASA world. I think we have one kid that went to NASA. Um,
heck
but
yeah,
but before that, like I mean, 5 years ago, like if they saw an application from Louisiana Tech University, they'd be like, I don't know anything about the school, right? Like I don't know how good their engineering program. I don't know what kind of engineer I'm going to get, which I think that's something that a lot of engineers take pride in.
Yeah.
Which that's a whole nother discussion, but they know the level of difficulty and the level of prestige associated with the university that you went to, right? So like they
Yeah.
understand like if you graduated as a mechanical engineer from, you know, Texas A&M, for instance, like if you graduated from as a mechanical engineer from Texas A&M, you went through a very rigorous program and you are well equipped to go out there and be successful as a mechanical engineer in the real world. And like not every like you're not gonna know that, you know, or somebody from Pennsylvania may not know anything about Texas A&M other than they're an SEC football team. Like that may be the extent of their knowledge. And so like you're not really setting yourself up for success if you want to, you know, look for a school or want to potentially work somewhere up in like Pennsylvania or DC or, you know, somewhere California or something like that, right? So
Yeah.
that has a big
Yeah.
part to play.
Yeah. And the other thing is that one thing that I, a perception that I had when I was in high school looking for schools is that I thought that a school could be too big for its alumni network to matter. So
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons why I chose a smaller school. And my again, I had a great alumni network, but I will say that in my experience that I've observed in industry is that that's just not the case. Like you might think it's too big for its alumni network to matter, but people actually do have that level of school pride and that general perception, like you talked about, like, oh, that school, they put out good engineers. Like
Right.
we know that University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, great engineers.
Absolutely.
Stuff like that. So now that's not saying that you have to go to the programs that are ranked the best, but it's at least worth considering the reputation of the school and what they're known for, because that's kind of the first thing that people are going to think about you when they look at your resume.
Yeah, absolutely. The school or the university that you graduated from is almost just as significant as the GPA in some cases.
Yeah,
Almost. Not more important, but almost.
yeah. So we talked about the degree and we talked about the university with picking the university and the degree, but I have some opinions about the degrees themselves.
Okay.
So my opinion is that I recommend sticking to the big major engineering programs. You got mechanical, electrical, chemical, civil, and then some people have. I said this in the comments in response to somebody earlier, and somebody else said aerospace. So maybe aerospace, maybe industrial as well. But my big four are mechanical, electrical, chemical, civil, because I think you can get a job in most industries, except for civil. You may not be able to work in aerospace, but mechanical, electrical, chemical for sure. You can work in almost any industry with one of those three degrees.
Yes.
And so that's my perception. And my other perception behind that is that those are the most versatile of the engineering degrees. So if you're picking one, I would kind of lean towards one of those three. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if you go to any, I mean, if you just kind of break it down, there's a good chance that anything you're working on is going to have probably some sort of foundation element, right? Some sort of support structure or whatever. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, you're probably going to need something that takes up physical space. Therefore, you need to understand structural integrity and civil components, right? And so, like, civil engineering can penetrate through a lot of different things, including potentially aerospace, right? Like the launch pads that they need for the rockets to take off on, like that's
Oh
significant, right?
yeah.
Also, like
Yeah, you got me there.
the integrity of the rocket ship, right? Like you're going
Structural,
up
yeah.
to
Yeah.
extreme pressures, so they're probably not going to put an electrical or a chemie on there. You know, they probably
Yeah.
want somebody with more of the civil background. So like, there's a good
Yeah.
chance that you'll be able to penetrate into a lot of things, and kind of the same thing through electrical. 100%, you can end up in any industry. I mean, you could end up in the sports world. Like, you can end up in anything because everything is going to need power, right? So like, you can end up
Boom boom.
designing or helping with some sort of facilities operation, you know, for you know, like a stadium or something like that. 100%, I think you could take an electrical engineering degree and pretty much plug it into any sort of world that you want.
Yeah.
And then mechanical and chemical, you know, that's mechanical is pretty much, you know, any sort of transfer of power that's going to be through some sort of mechanical aspect, and chemical is somewhat the same way. And chemical can also be thought of as process engineering too, right? So like a chemie can also do process engineering, which doesn't necessarily mean they need to focus on reactions. but more of, the process of what's going on. So
Yeah.
100%, I say that if you get one of the big four engineering, you're good. But if you already have a really good idea and you already have some sort of susceptible, like you're already, susceptible to some sort of specific niche that you want to go into. For instance, like if you are really good with computers and you're really good with coding and you're really good with just understanding coding languages and the logic that goes into it, it may be worth it for you to pursue something that's more of a cyber or computer engineering, right? Which is going to be
Yeah.
more catered to the field that you want to go into, as opposed to going the alternative route, which is get electrical engineering because that's what's going to most closely resemble a computer or cyber engineering degree, and then hope that your electrical engineering degree will kind of will eventually like work your way into it, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I mean, if you, I'm not discounting the niche degrees, not at all. I'm not discounting them, but I think that if you look at the companies that do those hyper niche things and you go on LinkedIn and look up the people that work for them and you just click through their profiles,
Mm-hmm.
I think that you'll find, like, for example, if this is like Boston Robotics, people think, oh, mechatronics, mechanical interfaces with electronics. Okay, so I want to get a mechatronics engineering degree. And I'm not saying that there aren't great mechatronics engineering programs out there. There probably are tons of them. But I bet you that they hire a bunch of electrical engineers and a bunch of
Bunch of
mechanical
mechanical
engineers.
engineers, yes.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of what I'm saying is that, like, yeah, this niche thing that combines other engineering disciplines into one is cool, but you can probably work there with one or the other. It is kind
Yeah.
of what I'm saying. Yeah,
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 I would agree with that. I mean, I think any sort of engineering degree you get, you're going to get enough exposure to all the other engineering types that or other engineering disciplines that you'll be okay. But again,
yeah,
that's back to the selecting the university or whatever that you want to go to. Like try and find one where I think if you take somebody that gets a mechatronics degree from a school that is that um, company does not recruit of out of whatsoever. I think that a person that gets a mechanical degree from the school that they more highly recruit out of is going to have
yeah,
a significantly higher chance of getting a job or finding a career with that company and in that field than somebody that gets a very, very specific, mecha electronic degree or whatever engineering degree and trying to apply if they've never heard about the school and never heard about the
yeah,
program.
yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So
I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
So, so we've talked about schools and jobs. So I think this actually really segues into another topic. So a lot of kids are really focused on the school that they want to attend. They want to attend the school with the highest ranking, the school that all their friends are going to, the school that has the best football team, the school that's going to have the best student experience with the coolest dorms and like off-campus living or on-campus living and the best dining hall. Oh my gosh, did you see that they have a Chick-fil-A in their commons? However, some people don't really think about, well, I'm going to be in college for at least 4 years, hopefully 4 years, not hopefully not too much longer than that. They don't really think about what job. They know they know what they want to be an engineer, but they don't think about the job, the specific kinds of job that they're going to do after school, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, what kind of thinking towards the future should students be thinking about whenever they're picking their college?
I think probably the biggest one is that whenever you're picking a college, probably the biggest thing that you need to remember, like kind of keep in the back of your mind, and I think this is going to kind of segue into our next topic a little bit, is that you have to think of this as an investment into yourself,
Yeah,
right? And so you want to get something you I mean it's similar, right? So like you wouldn't want to waste a lot of money on something that you don't know what I mean, you should at some point kind of understand a little bit of like the business logic behind it. You don't want to get something that's going to potentially have no return on investment, right? So like you don't want to put yourself in a situation or you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you go and pursue a degree or pursue something that has significantly higher value, like the investment is very, very high, and the amount that you're going to get out of it is not. It, it, it wouldn't matter whether you chose to go for instance, I mean, I guess I'll just go ahead and put hypotheticals. Like, if you went to USC to pursue an engineering degree because you want to go hang out in Southern California for 4 years and you want to go
Hell
live
yeah,
in,
brother.
yeah, and you want to go live out there where your cost of tuition is going to be significantly high, as well as like the cost of living, right? So, like, you're potentially looking at racking up 120 or 150K in debt by the time that you get out and you graduate and you go and get a job. Taking that where you're probably going to land the same or similar salary ranges as somebody that goes to, say, a school in Texas or Nebraska or Wisconsin, or a school like Louisiana Tech, where there's going to be almost somewhat like comparative engineering programs where you're going to come out and make relatively the same amount of money. um, you know you're comparing $150,000 investment to a potentially like 15, 20, $30,000 investment, right? And so it's like you're going
Yeah,
to come out making the same amount. And so it's like, don't waste money just to waste money because you're putting
yeah,
it into the other like intangibles that aren't necessary.
yeah. And I think this is like a a cost benefit analysis you have to take into account with the first bit, right? Like you have
Right.
to take that. It's a cost benefit thing, right? So it's kind of something that you have to kind of look at together.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a much better way of phrasing it, right? Is the cost benefit. It's like what are you really going to get out of? Like if you go to a school that's either just a really expensive school or it's an out of state school, so already they have really high tuition rates, right? So like if you're in state in Louisiana, right? For instance, like if you grew up in Louisiana, is there really significant benefit in you going to Texas A&M to get a school at Texas or to get an engineering degree from Texas A&M as opposed to going to an in-state in Louisiana where you would have significantly lower cost of tuition? Is it worth it? Probably not, right? And so like that's the kind of the cost benefit. It's like, well, I wanted to go, like I've been an Aggie fan my whole life. I want to go to Texas A&M. It's like, well, is it really worth the extra, potentially 50, 60K to go there? It's like, maybe not, So it's kind of that cost benefit.
Yeah. So you want to choose a school that's affordable.
Yes,
School's an
absolutely.
investment. Yeah, you got to make the best investment for you. So is that school going to cost you so much more, and is that going to be that much more worth it for you? So, um, and I hate to be Mr. Pick your in-state school. That's not what I'm saying. I think there's plenty of other ways to go to other universities affordably, but yeah,
Yeah. Well, something that else that we can kind of talk about is, there are still opportunities, right? So like if you really wanted, so for instance, like we talked about at the beginning, go to a school where, like they really recruit heavily out of, right? So like sometimes that's not going to be in state, So like if you were really into, like if you really want to go work for Tesla, like you may have to go out to California, right? Because that's where they're going to recruit heavily out of. And so then it's like, well, how do you make that possible then? And like that's their, find a place or find a way to get scholarships and grants and other sorts of things that you can make school more affordable for you, right? And that then goes back into kind of the investment into yourself. It's like find a way to make it as cheap as possible, so that way your return on investment is significantly higher.
and in some ways you can kind of do that without necessarily. I mean, again, big name schools and proximity to certain universities or certain employers definitely are probably going to have a high likelihood. But there are other things you can look at. For example, again, I'm sure that somebody's in a macro out there, but go on LinkedIn and just click through. Where did all the
Yep.
people that work there graduate from? Go check their social media posts on LinkedIn and other places. Do they post about some university's FSAE team or electric car program? Do they post about that program that they're sponsoring? Um, Go to the universities and go to their engineering webpage and go look at the extracurricular programs that they advertise and look at the sponsors for those programs that are in the university's advertisements. You might find yeah, I was at like I did a tour of Rice. I'm like, yeah, Northrop Grumman sponsors this program, and Lockheed sponsors this program, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So, yeah, obviously a school like Rice would have connections like that. But anyways, they're in Houston, so they have NASA and all that stuff too. But like, look
Right.
for those pipelines, right? That from graduate to career, that the schools and the companies are creating with one another, and find that investment.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't consider, right? Like they don't think of extracurriculars whenever they're thinking of schools. And I know, for instance, like for Louisiana Tech, a big one that we do is our eco car. Like eco car is big. Like that's kind of like the crown jewel of our engineering extracurriculars. Well, it's sponsored by a lot of big companies, right? So like Marathon, Shell, all those people want to do a lot of research and a lot of investment into making a car as economically friendly as possible, or as fuel efficient as possible. And so like they put a lot into it, and they of course they have representatives of the company that you potentially interact with, and that's something that a lot of people don't consider. Is like, whenever you hear about these extracurriculars, it's more than something just to do to pass the time. You could potentially look at it as a connection, right? Another networking opportunity into that field. And so yeah, 100%. Don't sleep on those. Like look for those and look for those opportunities if it's on the table.
Yeah. So we kind of mixed two of them. I tried to be sifty and shifty and try to switch to the order of two of them behind your back, and then you kind of merge them back together. So we talked about the degree. We talked about jobs after college. We've talked about scholarships. Those are the three big ones that we've talked about. Did we miss anything content wise for degree, jobs after college, and scholarships?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, maybe we can hit on scholarships a little bit more.
Yeah, let's do
Just
it.
yeah. I mean, I think that's something. So whenever you're considering, I guess colleges, right? So like there's a lot of things to consider. So I think the first one, and I mentioned it last time that I was on here, is like it's never too early to plan 5 to 10 years out, right? And
Yeah,
so whenever you're picking a degree and you're picking a career choice, like you want to of course pick a degree that is really suited for like where you want to be in 5 to 10 years. So like if you have a specific, like if you want to be, like if you want to design, um like if you want to design, space shuttles, then like you need to pick a degree that's gonna mirror that and gonna put you on that path. And then you want to pick a school that's going to really complement that degree, to make sure that you're put on track to do that. But then also like you have to make sure that you kind of have like the funding and the way to make that happen. So like whenever you're picking a school, like make it an opportunity, or get or put your best foot forward and make it affordable, so that way you're not, like you don't have to have a bunch of student debt to go and pursue it, or it's no longer an option. And so like
yeah,
finding scholarships, and there are scholarships out there for days. Like they have them all over the place. You can apply to a ton of them and get a ton of grants, a ton of scholarships, and like definitely make that happen.
yeah. And I think that, you know, people have the mindset that, oh, I'm gonna get an engineering degree and I'm gonna make way more money than I've ever seen in my entire life, which is true. So I'm gonna be able to afford it. And I just like to remind you, look at the status, especially if you're in America, look at the student loan crisis. Talk to people. Just go on Reddit. Go anywhere, and you'll see that yes, you can take on student debt and you can dig your way out of it, but it's a really big burden. Look at an amortization table. Whenever the student loans are getting put in front of you, look at it. Look at how much you'll be paying every single month for how long, because it is a decision that will go with you for possibly the rest of your life. And if you take it for the rest of your life, then it'll get passed down past you and on to the next person in your family's life. So it's just a lot of people like, oh, that's 4 years off. But remember, we're making decisions, like Luke said, for 5 years from now. So think about what your life. I mean, $1,000 a month doesn't sound like a lot, but $1,000 a month is $1,000 a month that could be going into an investment vehicle, and then run the math on what that looks like, and then you're like, oh, that's what this is actually costing me if I
Right.
could be making 10% on this money instead of paying 3% on this money.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it is an investment. Like school, I mean, yes, the college experience, and you learn a lot from going to college. And my liberal arts university really pushes that, and I got a lot out of it. I will admit, I got a lot out of it, and it's made me who I am. And you definitely need to go to schools that will help you become a more well-rounded person. I'm not saying that. You need to grow in other ways outside of academics, because if you don't grow outside of academics, then you will not be successful.
Yeah.
However, again, it is an investment. So that the fact that it's an investment should be a major part of the decision. And for most people, it is.
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people are missing nowadays. I mean, we definitely don't have to get really political or, push any sort of agendas or anything like that. But
Nope.
I think a lot of people are they're uh, missing what a university was originally intended to, or what the degree that you're pursuing was intended to be. And we can definitely something that maybe potentially I would like to talk to you about is
Yeah.
the philosophy on engineering, because I was kind of introduced to that idea um, kind of my like senior year, right before I was graduating. I had a kind of a TA. He had kind of just started, so maybe he had just got signed on as a professor, like an adjunct professor or something. So he had just gotten his PhD. But one of the things that he kind of looked into was kind of the engineering and making a well-rounded engineer and all the stuff that goes into it. But I mean, we can talk about that another time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
Let's do that. Let's do that offline, and then see if we want to bring it into the
Yeah,
pod.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, you definitely want to, like make school affordable, make it an option, find ways to pursue it. And yes, you do need to be a well-rounded individual, right? Because like that's something, they talk a lot about, you know, like once you get into a position, or once you get into once you get into a company and you have a job, right? Like they'll teach you on the job, or you'll learn on the job. Well, there are certain intangibles that you learn throughout your college career that you can't like just pass off, right? So like the ability to carry a conversation with people and be able to carry a technical conversation with people is very important, but you can't really learn that on a whiteboard, right? Like you can't, do that
Yeah.
through a testing format, right? Of things that you do need to kind of balance the best of both worlds and still be like a social person and be able to connect and have a lot of those soft skills, but also still focus on the technical content and realize like why you were there.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. We hit on the investment. So let's do, and we also talked about the cost of tuition. So that was another one of your topics. So let's go into your last one. This one is one that I'm not sure how much I agree with you on, but I'm excited for you to talk about it. Number four, location.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, no, I do agree with you. Okay, no, sorry. I did not mean to set you up like that. Why did I do
No, 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 you're good,
that?
you're good, you're good. We're not
Hello,
gonna
let me just drop a massive bomb. All right, your turn to talk.
no, you're good.
Trap card.
Yeah, so I think, so something that maybe we haven't kind of outlined very very well is kind of like, you want to look at, whenever you're picking a school, like you want to look at a matrix of elements, right? So like there are certain things, and maybe it would have been good to pull one up, and maybe I can send you one and we can look at it, and you
A
can like edit
matrix
it
of
in post.
elements.
It's a decision matrix, right? You know
Oh,
what
I'm
those
gonna get
are,
one.
yeah. So like
Decision matrix. I'm looking it up. Keep on
yeah,
talking.
and so you kind of, so you rank importance of things, and then you give, and then you then go down with your list of options, and then you rank them, between like one and however many options that you have. But you have to rank priorities, right? So for instance, like a big one, like a big decision matrix that they have a lot is like for schools, like whenever you get offers, not schools, I'm sorry, jobs. So like whenever you get offers, it's like it's pay, and then it's benefits, and then it's location, and then it's field, or like who you're working with or whatever, right? So like you have a lot of things. And so it's like, okay, well, if pay is the most important to me, then you would rank that as one, right? And so like that would have a
Yeah.
multiplier, um by
Did you see the
what
one
you,
I'm sharing right now?
I can. Yeah. So like it's yeah, so it's similar to that, right? So like you would have a multiplier and then you would multiply it by where you rated, your job offers, right? So like if there's one, that's 20 or 30 grand higher, then you would say, okay, well that's rank number one, right? So then you would multiply it by that multiplier that's associated with that rank. So like if
Yeah.
yeah, so if salary is most important or the amount that you make is most important, then it's probably going to have a multiplier of like seven or something like that. And so I think something that we may have missed is kind of like ranking that in somewhat of a decision matrix. And so, like, the first one, of
Yeah.
course, is like the degree that you want to get, right? So pick a school. Like, if you want to go and be an engineer, don't pick a very heavy, uh, like, don't pick Juilliard, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't do something like that, right? So, like, if you want to be an
Whoa,
engineer,
whoa,
don't pick a
whoa,
school
whoa,
like
whoa, whoa.
Juilliard.
Hey, the School of Engineering at Juilliard is highly, highly ranked, but it's sound engineering. So
Okay. If
I
you
just
want
made
to
that
be
up.
an electrical engineer, okay, you made that up. You're setting me up again because due to my ignorance of Juilliard, because I've never done any research into it. But but yeah, so like don't set yourself up for failure like that, right? Because like where I'm from, or like the high school that I went to, something that happened frequently is that a lot of people, and we're about to talk about this last one, but a lot of people picked location as more important because they wanted to stay home and they went
Yeah.
to the local school that's like the local university that's close to me is like 15 minutes away from where I grew up, right? So like they could commute, they could live at home, commute, save a bunch of money. It would be great potentially, right? Like it's great on paper. The problem is like some of them wanted to go and be chemical engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. Well, at best, you can go there for 2 years and then you have to transfer out, right? And so, like, that's kind of setting yourself up for failure. So again, like, whenever you're picking it, I think the first thing that you need to prioritize is the degree that you can get from the school that you're attending, and then after that, it's um, after that, it's then the job after college, right? So, like, if you want to be a mechanical engineer, find a school that can be that can get you a good mechanical engineering degree. And then next you want to say, okay, well, what job do I want after school, right? Because you want to do the plan 5 to 10 years in the future. And it's okay, well, what job do I want to do? I want to go work for NASA? Do I want to go work for Marathon or Shell or BP or Exxon, whoever? It's like, okay, well, let me pick a job, or let me pick a if I have the chance or the opportunity, let me pick a school that's going to benefit and complement like that, I guess, path for my career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then after that, and these may be tied, right? So like this is all, based on personal preference. But like if
And your
funding
personal
and
situation. Yeah.
your personal situation, right? So like, and then after that, I said scholarships, right? So like that's the next thing is like how affordable is it to get into that school? So if it's absolutely egregious, again, like back to that decision matrix that we can pull up and kind of walk through. But if it's like $150,000 to go to a school, as opposed to if you can go to a school for like potentially 30K or 25K after everything's said and done, it's like, okay, well, we may just have to eliminate that one. That one may be a no go because I can't do 150K after. But the last one that I want to talk about is location, um, which I think this is one that you should not like prioritize, like, right? So like don't end up in that situation like a bunch of the people that I went to school with did. They prioritized the comfort of living at home, and they prioritized the potential savings on housing and the potential savings on for to pursue a degree that wasn't actually the degree that they wanted to potentially or hopefully transfer out to LSU, to Tech, to
Oh, yeah.
Southern, something like that,
That
right? So
sucks.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, so make sure you don't have your priorities out of alignment. And so I guess that's the next thing that we're going to talk about is like the location, and then you would have to rank it. But yeah, the location one, I think it's important. It's definitely something that you
Yeah.
want to discuss. Daniel, I mean, I want to hear your take on it. I've been talking way too much for the past 5 minutes, but like I want to hear your take, I guess, on location and how important it is to you because you went to a school close to you, right?
I did somewhat close. So first, here's an example of a decision matrix. I'd say that in some ways was related to what I wanted to do, but not. So location was actually not super important for me. I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay in Texas, just so I wanted to be within driving distance to go home. Part of that was because I had a high school relationship, which looking back on it, that should not have weighed as much into the decision as I wanted to, but also because of the fact that I wanted to be able to visit my family. I wanted to be able to go back for holidays, and it would have been much more affordable for me to do that, and much easier for me to do that if I went to school in state. And uh, the in-state tuition was, I mean, those were the
Right.
universities that I looked at, and then in-state tuition, which just made it more affordable. So, but yeah, I would say that location, like you said, it's I would weigh it really low. Like this example matrix that is right here, which I don't agree with major options because we're mostly focused on engineers that kind of know what they want to major in already. But the location, I definitely really agree with the way that they weighted it as a low, because the exact location isn't that important to me. I'd say that, you know, proximity to a major employment hub could be really important for somebody that's an engineer, especially if you want to work. A lot of people now, believe it or not, most people end up working in areas somewhat close to where they graduated from college. And you may not think that's the case for you, and I did not think that that was the case for me. I thought I was going to go back up to DFW after I graduated from college, but I ended up in San Antonio for a few years, and now I'm in New Orleans. So, but I went to school in San Antonio. I ended up working in San Antonio. It just happens that way, and for many people, it just happens that way. But I just don't think that location is that big of a deal at all. And I think that if you allow that to make your entire decision, then like your people you're describing, I think that you're making a mistake.
Yeah. No, my stance on it is it can be an added benefit. Don't go looking for it, right? Because like you don't always get the opportunity to stay home, right? Like you don't always get the opportunity to be within commuting distance of a really great school. Like a lot of people don't get that luxury. So like you have to go somewhere regardless. Um, but definitely don't sacrifice any of the other three for location. And whatever way you're trying to validate it in your mind, if you're like, no, I want to stay really close to home, just try and be open minded about it and say, okay, well, what's the real benefit of staying at home, right? So like, I think first moving away can be really, I guess, kind of beneficial, build a little bit of independence. But is the cost that you're going to save potentially staying at home versus having to move on campus worth you maybe not getting your engineering degree? Like all those people that from back home that went to that other school that didn't offer an engineering program, none of them became engineers. So is it worth potentially sacrificing your career and the degree that you wanted to get? Because
Oh,
yeah, because you get 2 years down the road and you're like, all right, I'm ready to transfer, and then there's a lot of issues with transferring, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now maybe you have a significant other that you're getting pretty serious with, and it's like, well, I don't want to leave them, or like you have responsibilities to home still. And it's like, well, I can't just pick up and leave, right? Like I have to help my baby brother or my baby sister or something like that. I think the segue from high school into college is a really good time to kind of like split that. So like I would just say, like location, if it can be an added benefit, if you get the opportunity to go, stay close to home and commute and still pursue a really great engineering degree that's going to put you on that path, do it. If not, try and it's a great time to be a little independent and figure out how to wash your own laundry.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, and again, my perspective is you should be excited about the opportunity to live in a new city. Like you should not shy away from that. Is my opinion. Like if you there's very few opportunities in your life where you get to live in a completely new city, and one of them is because of a college, and other ones are because of your career. So I say take advantage and cherish those opportunities, and you'll grow a lot from it.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. And I know if anybody's scared to move away whenever they're pursuing their college degree,
I
colleges
was.
are they're very, very catering. Like you're not the only one in that position, right? So like for Daniel, whenever he moved to New Orleans, like he may have been one of very few like kind of outsiders or I guess transplants, right? So like people that kind of transplanted into New Orleans. There are probably a bunch of people that are from New Orleans there. But whenever
Yeah.
you go to college, there everybody's just like you. Everybody's in the same
Yeah.
situation. Everybody's coming from far away. They don't know a ton of people there. They're looking to
Want to
make
make friends?
friends, looking to
Yep.
meet new people. It's like if you're scared of that aspect, college may be the best opportunity to do it, honestly. Like
Yeah.
swing for the fences.
Amen. All right. So we talked about 50 minutes about college tips and how to pick a college. Did we miss anything? Do,
I don't think so.
uh,
I think the only thing just to kind of hammer home is just take all these things into consideration and make your own personalized decision matrix, right? Because like
yeah.
there are some people that location may be the most important due to responsibilities and obligations you have at home, right? So like if you're not a like if you're a non-traditional student, like if you're a non-traditional student and you've got a wife and kids, you can't
Yeah.
pick them up and go and move. So it's like you have to pick a spot
Yeah.
that's close to home. But make a personalized decision matrix. If you have any questions, reach out to Daniel. Daniel's going to give great advice on
Reach out to Luke.
universities. Or we'll both input. We'll both help you
We'll
out.
field them all.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so if you have any questions and how to make it and how to rank it and what that looks like, absolutely just reach out to Daniel. But try and make a personalized choice and keep you know do some research. Like I think that's the other thing that I think I missed whenever I was looking for schools. It's like I didn't even really consider a ton of options. I don't know what it was like for you. You're probably a better high school student than I was, but whenever I was picking for schools, I was like, all right, I'm
It's a
going to
nerd.
Tech.
Yeah.
That was it. Like literally, that was my college decision. I was like, I think I applied to maybe two schools. I might have applied to LSU. I had no intention of going there, and then I applied to Tech. I was like, once I got in, I was like, all right, that's where I'm going. And then
Yeah.
like I'm getting out in the field, I'm realizing that NC State has a really good program. Texas A&M has a phenomenal engineering program. Like all these other big schools that you hear about, University of Florida, University of Central Florida. I mean, of course, you know about like your MITs and your UCLAs and all that other kind of stuff, but there are programs out there that you may not have had any exposure to other than on Saturday whenever that your team, like your whatever collegiate team you root for, is playing against them on the football field. Like that may be your only exposure to them. Do some
Yeah.
research, find good schools.
Yeah. And for those of you that are listening, which is this is a large portion of our audience as well, but if you're already in the industry, you already went to college, and we missed any major decision factors, like maybe variety of majors is more important. Let us know. Let us know what you think. Right into the podcast, ENGRING, just like it shows up in your course catalog, ENGRING.success@gmail.com. Right into us, and we will make sure to bring up your tips in the next episode of
I'm
the
not
pod.
complaining, nah, I'm not complaining. My thoughts get complicated, I cannot explain in lameness. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.